que es una terapia, un análisis. ¿Lo maquillaste? Entonces vamos a comenzar con mi compañero Juan Pablo Navarro, a quien pido un aplauso. Y mi nombre es Néstor Marconi, para hacer dos temas, uno muy tradicional como los mareados de Cadícamo y Cobián, y luego ese maravilloso tema de Astor Piazzolla, Adiós Nonino. Muchas gracias. Y bueno, ahora sí, gracias por el silencio y gracias por los aplausos. Y ahora quiero presentar a una exquisita cantante, Susana Moncayo.
Gracias, caballero. Espero que salga.
Dos temas muy tradicionales, una canción de Aníbal Troilo y Naranjo en Flor de los hermanos Espósito.
copa del alcohol hasta el final, y en el final tu niebla bodegón, monótono y fatal, me envuelve el acordeón con un vapor de tango que hace mal. A ver, mujer, repite tu canción con esa voz gangosa de metal que tiene olor a ron, tu bata de percal, y tiene gusto a miel tu corazón. Una canción que me mate la tristeza, que me duela, que me aturda, y en el frío de esta mesa vos y yo, los dos en curva, los dos en curva, y en la pena milonguera que me da la cosa, mira, me pido cariñito, que me cantes como antes, despacito, despacito, tu canción una vez más. La dura desventura de los dos nos lleva al mismo rumbo siempre igual, y es loco vendaval el viento de tu voz que silba la tortura del final. A ver, mujer, un poco más de ron y ciérrate la bata de percal, que vi tu corazón sufriendo en el umbral, cansado al escuchar esta canción. Una canción que me mate la tristeza, que me nene, que me enturbie, y en el frío de esta mesa, vos y yo, los dos en curva, los dos en curva, y en la pena sensiblera que me da la borrachera, yo te pido cariñito, que me cantes como antes, despacito, despacito, tu canción una vez más. Muchas gracias. Era más blanda que el agua blanda, era más fresca que el río, naranjo en flor, y en una calle de estío, calle perdida, dejó un pedazo de vida y se marchó. Primero hay que saber sufrir, después amar, después partir, y al fin andar sin pensamiento. Perfume de naranjo en flor, promesas vanas de un amor que se escaparon con el viento. Después, ¿qué importa del después? Toda mi vida es el ayer que me detiene en el pasado. eterna y vieja juventud que me ha dejado acobardado como un pájaro sin luz. Para dejarme en el pecho tanto dolor, dolor de vieja arboleda, canción de esquina, dejó un pedazo de vida, naranjo en flor. Primero hay que saber sufrir, después amar, después partir y al fin andar sin pensamiento. Perfume de naranjo en flor, promesas vanas de un amor que se escaparon con el viento. Después, ¿qué importa del después? Toda mi vida es el ayer que me detiene en el pasado. Eterna y vieja juventud que me ha dejado acobardado como un pájaro sin luz.
I want first to thank the artists who gave us such an impacting atmosphere with this wonderful town and this wonderful country. It is my pleasure to open this 50th Congress of the IPA, and following the tradition, I will propose some thoughts, and then the colleagues who are at the table will follow. Dear colleagues, when I proposed 2 years ago to give this Congress a title of only one word, intimacy, I had in mind a specific aspect of the development of psychoanalysis in this new century, and its difference from the other socio-cultural trends inspiring philosophies and therapeutic practices which largely characterize many contemporary human interactions during psychological treatments. Intimus is the superlative of intra, inside. Before entering here this complex, intriguing, delicate theme, a challenging question could arise here with some paradoxical nuances. There are almost 2,000 colleagues here attending the IPA Congress. Can we expect, in spite of the size of this audience, an intimate enough atmosphere to be created when discussing in these days this concept and its theoretical clinical implications? It is what I wish and I believe we will be able to do. Even if we are conditioned by serious confidentiality problems when speaking about clinical material, I feel confident about our capacity to do that, since internal reality is the common field we are specifically expert in and familiar with. And I know, like all of you, how psychoanalysts in a middle land between science and art, or at least artisan, are able to effectively describe, evoke, and convey to others in a deeply experiential way, not only concepts and abstract theories, but also fantasies, atmospheres, colors, temperatures, and above all, feelings. What really creates meetings, experience, and potential internal change inside ourselves, no less than inside our patients. It results from our attention to the relationship, no less than to the drives. Unlike other kinds of therapists, psychoanalysts don't pay attention only to external behaviors and attitudes, nor only to social phenomena or to abstract concepts, as sociologists or philosophers usually and properly do. Working with the internal reality of our patients implies also a substantial and potentially creative contact with our own internal reality and with the shared field we co-create with the other during our treatments. The way we do that is, in my opinion, the core of the current most stimulating development of psychoanalysis. How is becoming gradually more important than what in psychoanalysis. The objects of our exploration, unconscious fantasies, memories, fears, needs, desires, are crucial in analysis. But the complex way in which we can reach, discover, contact, share, handle, work through, represent, and transform them in the analytic interchange with our patients is today much more crucial than before. In accordance with that, the way the ego contacts and treats the self determines intra-psychically the initial pre-subjective and then subjective experience of an individual. The way, probably also more than the selected contents, characterizes different schools, styles, and techniques which today cohabit and co-participate in our scientific, professional, and educational common ground. Theory of technique is intrinsically involved and influenced when one studies the dimension of intimacy, as we will see. That is the area where the deepest changes can happen, the laboratory, the special place that puts in contact the internal worlds of two human beings. There are, as we all know, many different views in this area. Allow me to say, having been the IPA president for a full mandate, having traveled a lot, and having met so many colleagues and groups, that something new is progressively changing in our community. Contemporary analysts have in their countries their own institutional families, their referral schools, their preferred theoretical credos. They are educated through different training models, for sure more than 3, and give spatial relevance in their literature and their clinical practice to different main concepts, such as separation, primal scene, narcissistic homeostasis, relationship, drives, etc. But much more than in the past, almost all analysts today know well enough these concepts and areas, which are a shared patrimony for our community, even while each school or group conserves their differences, traditions, and identities. IPA, as a big interregional network, is the highly credited provider and diffuser which allows such knowledge to circulate, partially through its scientific collective production, but mainly through the active experiential interchange organized in some cases in harmonious collaboration with FEPAL, EPF, APSA, and NAPSAC. Through its committees, congresses, working groups, through CAPSA interchanges, it allows colleagues from many parts of the world to meet and to dialogue with one another directly in person or over the internet with general advantage and growth. This increasing exchange and institutional way of life contributes towards creating, year by year, what I like to call an IPA mentality, which is based on mutual respect and recognition of the richness of the psychoanalytic tree generated and supported by the Freudian trunk, and developing a variety of further flourishing branches. An awareness about our wide and multicultural community and the capacity to preserve its scientific historical continuity in an open-minded way, open to evolution, without fossilization and crystallization in only one sacred and untouchable theory. Our public or private theory can no longer be expected to be the only one respectable psychoanalytic theory when we truly experience an interregional meeting. I think IPA is the kind of ground where strong expressions such as, of course, por supuesto, ça va sans dire, gewiss, could now sound frankly naive and frequently need some cautious attenuation when pronounced during a scientific debate. Very few, of course, and its equivalents can pass through the thoughtful test of a contemporary interregional psychoanalytic discussion without paying the price of a deep, complex, and fearless critical re-examination. Examining untouchable certainties can accent and put under revision some obstructive narcissistic identification with idealized objects, some transferences to sacred theories and to idealized authors and schools. On the other hand, in an open-minded mutual consultation and intervision, the advantage is given by the opportunity to learn, to know more, to confront one another, and to open the door to new experiences and ideas, albeit while maintaining our original, absolutely natural and legitimate psychoanalytic identity related to analytic families and traditions. I'd say that psychoanalysis has become more complex, more Copernican and less Ptolemaic, and that this is part of the previously mentioned IPA mentality. In short, IPA today means, among a number of other institutional and organizational aspects, awareness of the variety and richness of the contemporary developments of psychoanalysis and enlargement of our culture and toolkit. Coming back to how. Beyond all theoretical differences, intimacy is the dimension which sooner or later becomes actually proper of a majority of analytic treatments. The dimension where basic functions like constance of the object, containment, holding, mirroring, nutrition, sharing, reflexive investigation, mutual recognition, appreciation of the preconscious creativity and of the free association flow, interpretation, and many, many others can be gradually experienced and utilized. In almost all treatments, there is a symbolic equivalence with early phases of the primal experiences. Bodily corporeal exchanges between internal worlds involve two-directional movements and passages from outside to inside and from inside to outside. Exchanges that can be nutritive, evacuative, genital, and that involve recognition of desire, need, functional coupling at various levels, fertilization, transformation, etc. This vital mode of intimate interchange is also perpetuated throughout the course of our existence, undergoing a partial transformation in daily life in the constant unconscious embedded undercover quest for psychic equivalence of what was corporeal in the pre-symbolic evolutionary phases, or vice versa, in substituting what is missing with concrete elements in the present in the internal exchange with the other. And psychoanalysis is, in addition to its many other aspects, the science that studies, treats, and sometimes utilizes these processes at an intra- and interpsychic level. In fact, people seek intimacy their whole lives in a more or less conflictual way. We see this in everyday interactions. We hear it in the lyrics of almost every song. We come up against it in a dramatic and condensed form in our clinical encounters, during which needs and defenses manifest themselves and clash with one another incessantly, fluctuating between opening and closing, between drawing near or withdrawing afar, between contact and detachment. People create and destroy occasional micro-symbiosis or fusionality all the time, mostly without even knowing it, putting their more or less developed skills to use in order to organize their potential for psychic coupling at various levels. Nevertheless, they need some shared psychic intimacy to nourish, oxygenate, and enliven their internal world in a recombinatorial way, even though they often have a tendency to consciously deny that need, especially when their defensive organization orients them towards omnipotent fantasies of self-sufficiency and anti-object narcissistic attitudes, as happens, for example, in the case of anorexia or narcissistic personality disorders. Natural development provides for passageways from the outside to the inside, and vice versa, of special tegumental tissues, the mucous membranes, whose function is to provide an intermediate environment in which interchanges can occur fluidly and in which substances can flow from one subject to another proactively if the exchange is desired and accepted by both. My contribution to this field has consisted precisely in highlighting the psychic equivalence of these intercorporeal processes and contextualizing them in the psychoanalytic process with inevitable repercussions on the theory of technique. I want to underline that here we find ourselves in a context of events that extend beyond the albeit important area of attachment, since they specifically involve exchanges of internal contents. Health intimacy is the natural dimension of deep interpsychic exchange in a shared atmosphere in which each subject can learn to alternate primary and secondary processes without fear or shame, modulating regression in harmony with the internal movements of the other. However, to be clear, out of any misunderstanding, I'm interested in intimacy like I was interested in empathy, but I am critical about intimism like I was about empathism. Any attempt to intentionally and actively create intimacy is doomed to fail, exactly like for empathy. One could say we cannot decide to be intimate. We can only accept to begin a presumably long and technically challenging psychic cohabitation with an at least problematic interlocutor. And we rely on our trained integration, mostly at the level of our professional self, and on our scientific competence, mostly at the level of our professional ego, for facing this journey. But we also know how, like in a journey, sooner or later, cohabitation will imply some kind of intimacy. Are we ready and really available for that relational adventure beyond our abstract and sometimes split ideals? There is no guarantee that intimacy means something good per se, since the potential for its openly destructive or subtly perverse use could damage or destroy one of the two, or both of them. Gaining the key to access the interiors of the other could lead to a variety of different discoveries, processes, and outcomes, depending on the involved drives of the two subjects and on the real quality of their internal objectal relations. So there is also the risk that after having gained some intimacy, an analyst might misuse his power by trying to force a premature or unacceptable interpretation inside the patient in order to be more loyal to a scholarly ideal or superego than close to the mutual intonation with the patient's need and possibilities. This can occur in a treatment if the natural Oedipal triangle, analyst, theory, patient, is unbalanced. For instance, with a too strong and excluding parental equivalent couple, analyst theory, which could impede the natural intimacy between analyst and patient. Or with a too incestual and symbiotic couple mother-son, analyst-patient, with no or scarce room for the third, which is the theory, where more than intimacy there can occur an excess of fusion and consequent confusional promiscuity. At the opposite extreme, an abstract ideal of scientific, objective detachment, peut-être froideur, which should preserve the analyst from an authentic internal involvement, could impede him, her, from resonating as a normally integrated human being when contacted, or sometimes impacted, by the multifaceted complexity of the patient's internal world. That said, we know how the analytic relationship is not at all a normal human relationship because of the patient's transferential regression and of our therapeutic mandate and responsibility. Our capacity to co-experience symmetrically the patient's subjectivity, to share the states of his or herself, to put ourselves in the shoes of the other, requires a clear and stable asymmetric internal position of the analyst, which allows the patients to display their internal scenarios in a safe, creative, analytic relation. So, I expect this Congress will also courageously explore the dangers of a wrong, misleading, and potentially damaging intimacy. Nevertheless, we can say that without having acquired some appropriate interpsychic intimacy, real changes will be at least unlikely, and the analysis would be at risk of remaining a merely intellectual exercise played only at a neurocortical cognitive level. But intimacy about what? Many people are inclined to associate the term intimacy mainly with some erotic, exciting closeness, which is not necessarily true, neither regarding the area nor regarding the depth of the involved affects. A few days ago, a patient of mine was speaking about his sense of troubling restlessness, which he could not connect with anything reasonably. This is a fierce, narcissistic man who would struggle to get in touch spontaneously with less than phallic internal postures. Nevertheless, we have known each other for years. We have worked a lot together, and he basically relies on my respectful closeness. I want to add, her knows where the Kleenex are on the shelf besides the couch. This is a very important complement of our instrumental apparatus. I know he knows also I could be ready to connect his current state to our incoming summer separation. But I don't want to mention it now, since I feel it would sound obvious and textbook in this moment, even if conceptually I do believe that connection is true. After a while, his associations bring him, I'd say, in spite of himself, to his parents' death some years ago, particularly his father's death, since its date recurs in these days. The way he mentions this sudden memory sounds extremely touching to me and resonates also suddenly inside myself. I feel deeply moved, and it occurs to me to remember my own father's death, with many concrete memories of that day and emotional contact. The patient cries and takes a tissue from the shelf, both. I say something to tell him I understand. The patient is now openly allowing himself to cry and dries his eyes with the Kleenex. We experience intimacy, sharing a pain. It is an interpsychic and intrapsychic deep passage that years ago would have been impossible. Restlessness has vanished. I'm aware one could discuss whether the accent should be placed on the incoming analytic summer separation as the main fact, considering the parent's death memory as a sort of defensive shift from our current relational event, or on the summer analytic separation as the transferential factor that creates a deeper connection with something still deeper and more relevant for this person. Here, I only want to underline how intimacy is the co-created and co-creating condition which characterizes this timeless scene, where here and now, thus and there, and every time, everywhere, coexist and interact in analysis. An unpredictable acting in. Georgia is what I call a pre-subjective and pre-analytic patient. When she consulted me for a treatment, she didn't accept my proposal to start analysis. She told me lying on the couch and meeting frequently from the beginning, she said her words, would have been unbearable for her. So we have been having face-to-face psychotherapy for 1 year. She is pre-subjective, in my opinion, since she has been, and partially still is, occupied and substituted by internal identifications which impede me and her from being in contact with something authentically hers. On the other hand, she is, in my view, also pre-analytic, since I feel she could sooner or later evolve towards an analysis, in spite of her present rejection and defensive organization. Here and there, she spoke to me sometimes about a specific issue on her 3.5-year-old little daughter, who is unable to poop on the toilet in the presence of anyone other than her mother. So Georgia, who is a worker and can't stay at home for the whole day, has to be there and to attend ritually her daughter's evacuations during the night, with no possibility to delegate to the babysitter such an intimate role during the day. She sincerely regrets that, more as a problem for her little girl than for herself. Recently, I noticed Georgia was becoming more familiar with me and started trusting me more. 1 week ago, her mobile started ringing during a session. She watched the screen and rapidly decided to answer, which had never happened before. "Doctor, forgive me, the babysitter is calling." It was not the babysitter. It was the little girl, directly on the phone. She wanted to announce to her mother she had just been able to poop with her babysitter, an event. Her voice bypassed the space between the mobile and her mother's ear and reached me, a shrill, happy voice announcing a great achievement, a real conquest that Georgia immediately and joyfully shared with her little daughter. A spontaneous celebration which I too instinctively joined, sharing with an evident facial expression the general satisfaction that filled our common field in that moment, and that went on for a while also after the end of the call. During this minimalistic episode, I perceived intimacy was progressing between the little girl and her babysitter, like between Georgia and me, and for sure, intra-psychically between Georgia's central ego and her own self. All these levels were there and interacted each other. I want to mention this very basic but deeply complex and meaningful situation in order to confirm the possible many phases and levels of intimacy and their importance in the evolution of a therapeutic process. After and through these 2 little clinical vignettes, I have the task and the honor to symbolically throw the ball into the field and to start this exciting IPA Congress in Buenos Aires. Let's work all together, dear colleagues, listening to the many diverse voices of our scientific community. Thank you very much. You all know Alexandra Billinghurst, but following the ritual, it's good that I announce her presentation. And so, simply, please, Alexandra.
Thank you. Can you all hear me well? I am so happy to be here in Buenos Aires with all of you, in this wonderful city with a great community of psychoanalysts, many of whom I can call friends. A psychoanalytic community with a scientific richness and creativity, and which is the home of our president-to-be, our first IPA female president, Virginia Ungar. In Prague and Boston, I ended my speeches with a poem. Today, I will start with a poem instead. And as before, I will read it in Swedish, English, and Spanish, and I have asked the translators to not interpret while I read. Mellanrummen träder fram, himlens starka blå med mörka lövens broderi träder framför trädens ljusa trädstammar. Oändlig rymd och nära kroppar i beröring byter ljudlöst plats. The spaces in between emerge, the sky's strong blue with the dark leaves embroidery emerge in front of the trees' light trunks. Infinite space and close objects touching, silently trading place. Los intersticios se hacen notar el azul fuerte del cielo con las hojas oscuras, bordado, emergen por delante, frente a los árboles de troncos ligeros. Espacio infinito y los objetos cercanos, conmovedar, cambian lugar sin ruido. The poem is by John Wipp, the artist and poet who also wrote the poem I read in Prague. Much can be thought and said about this short poem, but it caught my eye because it captures the change of perspective from immense to close detail, as well as a sort of intimate dance between the deep sky, the port to the infinite, unknown space, and an object that is close by, a tree that we in a more concrete way can touch and get to know. But it is the spaces in between that to me connects it to the theme of the Congress, intimacy. The space in between, that space which is there and not there, lending itself to be seen and being filled with meaning, depending on the perspective and who is observing. I feel the poem can also be said to capture aspects of my own professional reality in my office as well as in my role in IPA. The process of getting to know the object in my office, a patient with a large unknown unconscious. The intricate process of conscious and unconscious communication between us, where my state of free-floating attention hopefully lets me discover the spaces in between, in which can be found a new pattern or connection, where my conscious perception, the patient's presence, and my unconscious silently trade places and give place to a new perspective, a new understanding, and where the patient, in turn, can discover the space in between, discover where what she thought was reality, there's another reality behind. And in my role as officer, the process of trying to get to know and contain the large body of IPA with its over 12,000 members in so many different settings in the world, as well as the perspective of the individual member or society. Infinite space and close objects touching, getting in contact and silently trading place, can be seen as a description both of the unconscious forces we get caught in large group situations, and as the benevolent dance of understanding, getting to know, and unconsciously placing the other in the web of the social context. As members of this large community of psychoanalysts and psychoanalysts-to-be, we all have the challenge of switching perspective, of trying to, with your own local experience, encompass and try to understand the other, the larger perspective as well as the reality of the individual member in another place. What Stefano Bolognini so well put has coined the IPA mentality. In reality, it is a challenge. It is so easy to refer to your own local situation and assume it to be the same in other places. We have the same roots, Freud, his theories, and the organization he founded, a trunk from where psychoanalysis has branched out and developed in different schools as well as in different locations. We have a very rich scientific clinical body of understanding in the wide geography of the psychoanalytic community we call IPA. The congresses is our interregional meeting place, give us one arena of communication and chance of getting to know and find out about others' perspectives and to keep developing the theory and practice of psychoanalysis. The theme of the Congress is intimacy, and we will have a very rich smorgasbord during the coming days, which I think Maureen Murphy will tell us more about in a little bit. One way I would describe intimacy is as sharing and leaving yourself open to the other, which implies letting yourself be vulnerable. The psychoanalytic relationship is an intimate relationship like no other. How many of us has not heard our patients state that we know them better than anybody else? The same is true, I think, of the supervisory couple, where the supervisee is expected to share and leave herself open in a trustful way, in order to enable a true understanding of the patient and the process in the analytic couple. In fact, one of the challenges we have as psychoanalytic societies is dealing with the effect of the intimate relationship that is our beginning as psychoanalysts. That is, with our own psychoanalysts and with our supervisors. Intimacy is embedded in our organizations, both for good and for bad, and makes them, in a way, even more complicated than other groups and organizations. With intimate ties, the history from the founding fathers of the society, the intricate underlying patterns of transferences, it is so important to strive for containing differences and diversity, both in our individual society and, I want to say, in IPA as a whole. That the foundation is democratic, transparent, and provide a setting with a high ceiling where there is freedom of thought, when there is not one truth that cannot be questioned scientifically or ideologically. This is an emotional moment for me, opening a Congress that we have worked hard for 2 years, and at the same time ending our administration. Today and tomorrow at the business meeting, get to perform my last tasks together with Stefano Bolognini, a man that I admire deeply, who with his mild manner captures moments of storm or confusion with a poetic metaphor that enables a new understanding and promotes thinking. Andrew Brooke, our treasurer, joined our team 2 years ago. Apart from being very good with money and explaining finances, I really appreciate his thoughtful contributions and his wish to find ways to help members and societies in areas with financial problems. We have all worked closely, the three of us, with Paul Craig, who is always there for us, explaining things and with his own perspective helps us further. And with the president and vice president-to-be, Virginia Unger and Sergio Nick. And with that experience, I know that IPA will rest in very good hands when they take over tomorrow. Stefano and I had, as part of our program, the wish to bring IPA closer to its members and the members closer to IPA, to make IPA more meaningful. One way of doing this has been our travels to different places all over the IPA world. And I feel very fortunate to have had a chance to in person experience the situation and reality in so many different places and to meet so many of you. Not long ago, we had the Asia Pacific Conference in Taipei, which was a wonderfully rich scientific and clinical experience. Asia Pacific is an area that in the IPA geography has been placed in North America and Europe. It contains both very old and new societies, and it is an area that is growing and that we have wished to make sure has a louder and more steady voice within the IPA community, and which in the future might become a fourth region. There are so many colleagues I would like to mention here, but it would take too much of our time, and I will have a chance to name more at the business meeting. But I do want to thank here the International New Groups Committee. ING is a core function of the IPA, and the work done during the last 4 years has been extensive and transformative in the work with the sponsoring and liaison committees under the chairmanship of Maria Teresa Hook, who has done a fantastic job in leading the development together with the co-chairs, Thelma Barros for Latin America, Paulo Fonda for Europe, and Gunther Pedergo for North America. And last but not least, Joe Beavis in Lexicon, who keeps track of it all and seems to have knowledge and history in her mind. But I also want to mention all the sponsors and liaison committee members whose work is essential, complicated, hard, but I know also very satisfying. Thank you all. Let me move now to the Congress itself. It has been a joy to work with the program committee chaired by Maureen Murphy, and with the co-chairs Pedro Gil for Europe, Alfonso Paula for Latin America, Ronnie Shaw for North America, and Isabel Severa for IPSO, and of course our events manager, Karina Gutierrez. One thing I have learned One thing I have learned being the vice president is how extremely complicated it is to organize such a large international congress. Having Maureen as chair of the program committee has been wonderful with her steady hand and eye for details. And the congress is a joint event between IPA and IPSO, and Isabel's contributions in the program committee has really been valuable. For the translators, I'm skipping a paragraph here. I, of course, also want to thank the local arrangements committee, composed by members from the 3 societies here in Buenos Aires, and co-chaired by Ines Vidal, Daniel Biebel, and Jeanette Raison, who welcomes us here and who has had many creative ideas and contributions in the making of this Congress, and who also helped us find the wonderful music that we experienced in the beginning. To mention one that is part of the Congress program, which I think you should all go to, is the Grandmothers of the Plaza de Mayo. I have already mentioned Karina Gutierrez, but the Congress involves the whole lexicon staff, many of whom you can see busy attending to us all here. The IPA staff, headed by Paul Craig and Nick Allen, provides the continuity and invaluable support without which IPA as an organization could not function. For this Congress, we have also had the experienced and attentive support by Geber and Roche. In Boston, we started a new tradition regarding the business meeting that we will continue here. At the start of the business meeting, we have a section with awards that will be open to all Congress attendees. And we will also, as last time, welcome all the new members that are present here up on stage. In all, we have 670 new members since the last Congress, from 51 different countries. We will also welcome representatives of new study groups and of societies that have a changed status, and we have 4 societies that are becoming component societies. 7 are changing status to provisional society if the business meeting improves it, and 2 new study groups. So I hope we see as many of you as possible at the business meeting. It is not just a bureaucratic moment, but a festive one. Here I have in my script that Karina has asked me to mention the lunch arrangements, but I realized I never got the information, so maybe Karina can give us that before or after the coffee break. So, last but not least, let me bring up confidentiality. As I said in Boston, I think for many of us, going to the international congresses has meant that we could speak about clinical matters in a way that is not possible at home. But with our changing world, we are all suddenly connected, and we walk around with phones that can record anything, and putting something on, for example, social media is but a click away. In that way, the Congress is not a safe place anymore. Confidentiality is at the core of our profession. It is the knowledge that what is said in the consulting room remains there that makes psychoanalysis the powerful tool that it is. gaining the trust of our patients and creating that room with 4 walls that do not leak. At the same time, we live with the paradox that it is the exchange of clinical thinking paired with the theoretical that brings our science forward. I would say that it is the clinical material that gets most of us going and that develops our thinking further. Recording during the Congress is, of course, strictly forbidden. For the clinical sessions, we will have confidentiality forms to be signed in each room, and there is a yellow paper for all the chairs who will make sure to bring this up so that all are aware of confidentiality. But I think the matter of confidentiality really disturbs some underlining in general. In a way, I think we take it for granted, but it is a matter that has to be kept constantly in mind and refreshed, as is ethics. And confidentiality is challenged in ways that we might not think of with the new technology and communication tools, as, for example, the use of email. It is so easy to send off an email. Many patients write to us without thinking of how wide open to others an email can be, when really it is like writing a postcard. We value the secret room for reflection in psychoanalysis and psychotherapy, having the possibility to reflect with the other about our innermost thoughts under confidentiality in an intimate setting. But I think it is something we should also transmit to our patients and to others, that having that secret room is something to value in a time when so many people expose intimate details and thoughts about themselves in blogs on the internet. With this, I will stop and wish you all a rich and interesting Congress with lots of exchanges and getting to know and maybe discoveries in the spaces in between. Thank you.
I ask our treasurer, Andrew Brook, for presenting his message to all of you. Thank you, Andrew.
Now? There we go. First of all, thank you, Alexander, for those kind words. As the IPA treasurer, you would expect me to talk about money. Well, this is not really the occasion to talk about money, so I will be brief. At the annual general meeting, to which, of course, you're all most cordially invited, there will be a report on the IPA finances. And the IPA is a transparent organization, so any information you wish about our finances will be available then, but now is not the time. Instead, let me simply welcome you to this marvelous conference. It exemplifies the principle of rotation that has become so central to the IPA, in which the Congresses and many other things, including the presidency and vice presidency and the treasurer's job, rotate among the 3 regions. This time, the Congress is in Buenos Aires in Latin America. The next Congress will be in Europe, in London, England. And the Congress after that, and I can't forbear to mention this, will be in my own home country of Canada, in the marvelous city of Vancouver. A great deal of work has gone into this Congress. In particular, Alexandra, from whom you just heard, and Maureen, from whom you will hear in a minute, and their committees have put in countless hours, hundreds if not thousands of hours. In addition, the staff at our new headquarters lexicon, and as an inducement to come to the annual general meeting, I will have a few slides of the new lexicon quarters. The staff at lexicon, as well as Alexandra and Maureen, have put in a great deal of work. It promises to be a marvelous event. I hope you find it not just interesting, but also profitable. And I will close by saying, welcome to you all.
Thank you, Andrew. I ask Maureen Murphy, who is the chair of the program committee, for an introduction to the Congress program. And I want first to thank her for the huge work she gave together with the colleagues of the Congress committee.
Dear colleagues, welcome. The 50th IPA and the 24th IPSO Congress under the banner Intimacy comes to fruition today here in Buenos Aires. The number of wishes, hopes, expectations, fantasies, projections that swirl around the development of a Congress make it a truly daunting project of mythic proportions. In fact, a number of times I found myself thinking of Cavafy's famous poem, Ithaca, about Odysseus' long voyage back to Troy. The opening lines of that poem set the stage. Cavafy says, "Hope that the voyage will be full of adventure and discovery." The outcome of such an undertaking as this requires what Bion would call a work group. Not simply a handful of people who agree to get a job done, but who are willing to provide vision, stamina, integrity, humor, and passion. Pedro Gil, Alfonso Pola, Ronnie Shaw, Isabel Silvier, under the leadership of Alexandra and the ever warm and competent Karina Gutierrez, took on that project. I think Bion would be proud of how well we work together. And I am grateful and honored to be part of that group. We're also fortunate to work in parallel with the Local Arrangements Committee, chaired by Daniel Bibo, Jeanette Dyson, and Inez Vidal, whose work enriched this program immeasurably, as you have seen for those of you who are participating in Monday and Tuesday, and as you will see on Saturday. President Bolognini, and I will say as just a little aside, a little North American aside, this is the first time since November that I can really say the word president something and feel all right about it. President Bolognini chose a theme that animated the imagination and creativity of the members. Over 600 presentations were submitted, the most in the IPA history. All of those who offered their ideas provided the raw materials for what emerged as the program before you today. As with any journey, there had to be obstacles. Why, what else about a mythic journey? Ours, as many of you know, was losing our venue late in the day. The original venue, which was to be a combination of the oldest law school and the strikingly modern convention center, and it held out the fantasy of bridging the past and the present. That seems to fit really well with psychoanalysis. However, when that arrangement was, shall I say, shipwrecked, a considerable amount of scrambling helped us find a new venue with its own character. Puerto Madera is a barrio in which every street is named for a woman. Could there be a better setting for a Congress when Virginia Unger, the first woman president of the IPA, will be installed? One of the first things that the program committee confronted was the question, how can we present intimacy in a way that adequately reflects its many facets in an atmosphere that provides intimate engagement for the participants? That all presentations preserve a substantial amount of time for interaction with the audience was an essential mandate for the program from the beginning. And this is feedback that we've gotten, and we're hoping to honor it. As in an analytic setting, we relied on free association and came up with a handful of concepts that had to be represented: gender, the body, theories of development, literature, writing, technique, families, couples, social, political, cultural influences, groups, training, and of course, ethics. From this jigsaw puzzle, a set of orienting principles emerged that will inform the plenaries and the discussion groups each morning. So, what is the relationship between intimacy, sexuality, the body, and gender? How is intimacy sustained and conversely eroded inside and outside the consulting room? What is the danger to the analyst's life as he or she lives with such intimacy with our patients? How do we think about the infrastructure of intimacy, including the physical environment, instincts, individual and clinical dynamics, couples, families, community, and societies? Out of this process has come a fabric of more than 200 panels, papers, small discussion groups, awards, large group experiences, meet the authors, meet the analysts, posters, and films. This year, we introduced a new category called Community Models. This is a series of presentations that focus on programs outside the consulting room, as well as programs designed to integrate psychoanalytic thinking with community practice. There are 3 of these models in your program, so from different parts of the world, that was just coincidence, but it really worked out. We've also included clinical exercises, a format that was originally a FEPAL initiative. Using verbatim clinical material, an anonymous case will be presented by a reader, not the treating analyst. A panel of analysts from different geographical areas will hear the material for the first time with the audience and associate to the material as freely as possible. Following the response of the panel, the audience will be also asked and invited to respond. This format is designed as the one place for sure, to give a group opportunity to observe how the mind of the analyst works in real time, as close to actual sessions as possible. There'll be a child case and adult cases. There are also 2 very special programs. The first is a memorial to and a celebration of the life of Horacio Echagüen, a hero of psychoanalysis. The second program, and a real privilege, organized under the auspices of the Local Arrangements Committee, is devoted to the tireless activists, the grandmothers of the Plaza de Mayo. I think everyone is familiar with this amazing work. The grandmothers are a symbol of the fight for human rights in Argentina. Their work began nearly 40 years ago and has received worldwide recognition. Their principal aim is the recovery of kidnapped children illegally given up for adoption during the military dictatorship that governed the country between 1976 and 1983. We are extremely happy that our Congress provides the opportunity for the grandmothers to tell us in detail. There'll also be a video about their work, which is not only of great social interest and import, but deeply moving. So I invite you all to that. That's on Saturday. So now, about a month ago, in true analytic fashion, I began having dreams that I had first considered to be expressions of anxiety. First, I dreamt that I was in a cafe having a glass of wine with 2 friends, laughing, excited to be here. I wished them goodbye, saying that I had to go and give my paper. As I approached the meeting room, I realized I didn't have my paper. I hurried back to the cafe, hoping that I'd left it with my friends, but they were gone, and so was my paper. I was on my own. While I was mulling over this dream, a second occurred. In this one, I'm going on a sea voyage. All the passengers are efficiently checked aboard. But when that happens, the captain says, "We have no room assignments. Just do as you like." Pandemonium breaks out, and I wake up. Then, Stefano, unbeknownst to him, gave me an interpretation that revised my original association. In his greeting to the Congress, Stefano says, quote, "For me, the sign of a good Congress is one where you come away a little different than when you arrived." I realized that my dreams were not only about concern for how things would go, but rather a wish that I, and all of us, would set aside the prepared ideas and established theories that we arrived here with, and allow ourselves to wander into unfamiliar rooms. Returning to the Cavafy poem, he wishes for the travelers, and I quote, "that there be many summer mornings when, with pleasure and excitement, you come into harbors seen for the first time." This is my wish as we spend a few days together.
Thank you to Maureen Murphy and to her outstanding team of collaborators. Now I want to give the floor to the president of the IPSO, Holger Himmigrofen, about IPSO and its Congress.
Could you please turn on the other picture? Okay, dear colleagues, I feel honored to be in the opening panel of the IPA IPSO Congress to represent IPSO. And on behalf of the IPSO Executive Committee, I'd like to welcome the psychoanalytic community who meets here in Buenos Aires. We are glad that over 400 candidates registered for the Congress, which is the largest number attending in 20 years, and we hope they will enjoy the various activities of IPSO and the IPA in the next days. In relation to the IPA Congress theme, IPSO named its 24th Congress Intimacy in Training. I want to thank everyone who helped us in the organization of our Congress very much. Without their commitment, we would have not been able to accomplish this scientific and social program. Yesterday, we had the IPSO opening day, where the IPSO Writing Award papers from the 3 regions were presented. During the IPSO lunch, the participants already exchanged about their training and experiences, which was continued with a lively discussion in the afternoon IPSO forum on the costs of training. Today, we continued with a special IPSO day at the APA Institute Angel Garma, where we had presentations and discussions about psychoanalytical clinical work and theoretical and practical aspects of psychoanalytical training. We discussed in a round table and small groups on the topic of an international candidates movement, the benefits of international fraternal links, and in a panel on small groups, again, the institution's presence in the intimacy of the analyst's training. We are happy that we could organize this day in cooperation with Javiera Marquez, the president of the Claustro Angel Garma. We will continue from Thursday to Saturday with several activities here in the Congress venue. Paper presentations, supervisions, and discussion groups like on the cross-regional study groups of IPSO, an OCAL IPSO session, and the Tyson prize session. I appreciate very much that we could organize a Meet the Analyst session with Virginia Ungar on the Saturday. Ipsos' main goal is to further the international and interregional exchange of psychoanalytical candidates about their clinical and theoretical work and about their experiences in psychoanalytical training. Taking part in the IPSO experience promotes the ability to realize and endure the differences apart from the similarities between oneself and others. An ability so important if you want to achieve a better understanding of others. For candidates, IPSO can be a secure space in which they can more openly and with less anxiety exchange, especially on the difficulties in their psychoanalytical training and work. In the local training institute, a candidate very often finds him or herself in a situation of dependence from his/her psychoanalytical institution with its hierarchical organization, where an open exchange on difficulties in the training can be limited. Many candidates are then isolated, and in their personal development as an analyst can be impaired. In extreme, this may lead to a pseudo-development with a non-authentic psychoanalytical identity. We are very much satisfied in which ways IPSO can cooperate with the IPA, and we hope this will continue in the future. We especially appreciate the support we have received over the last years from Stefano Bolognini and Alexandra Billinghurst, who were always open and helpful to IPSO's requests and ideas. A big thank you to the both of you. So here, we can now make use of our temporary freedom from the bonds of our local institutes and be open to new experiences. However, we must be aware that after the Congress we will return from these vacations from our institute back home. The question remains, how can we transmit and maintain this spirit of freedom and the new experiences back home? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Holger Himighofen. Our IPA and IPSO congresses go ahead in a mutual collaboration and harmony, and this for us is a reason for huge satisfaction and happiness. Now I am very pleased to welcome the three presidents of the Argentinian societies, and I will start by inviting Claudia Borenstein, who is the president of the Argentine Psychoanalytic Association. Thank you.
Bueno, buenas tardes a todos. Muy buena noticia. ¿Se escucha o toqué algo? Ahora, la buena noticia es que voy a ser muy breve. Después de todas estas presentaciones intensas al Congreso, me toca a mí presentar y saludarlos a todos en nombre de la Asociación Psicoanalítica Argentina, la APA, que este año cumple 75 años porque fue fundada en 1942. Y la historia, digamos, de la APA está ligada al movimiento psicoanalítico argentino, con una fertilización cultural muy intensa entre los que aquí estaban ya estudiando a Freud y los que vinieron de Europa en tiempos difíciles de la Europa de la preguerra y de la guerra, como Ángel Garma, el bilbaíno, destacado analista fundador de la Asociación Psicoanalítica Argentina, con muchos aportes al psicoanálisis. Tiene una asociación dedicada a Ángel Garma en Bilbao, un aporte de la teoría traumática de los sueños, una continuación de la teoría de Freud. También Cárcamo, que fue miembro de la SPP en 1939, estudioso de los mitos latinoamericanos. Pillon Rivière, que nació en Ginebra, fue criado en Argentina, su origen de lengua de origen era el francés y luego habló el guaraní, antes que el español. Impulsor de la psicología de los grupos, del psicoanálisis de los grupos, de la psicosis, introdujo el tema de los vínculos, muchos otros conceptos que conocerán o quizás no, como el proceso en espiral, el chivo expiatorio, el esquema conceptual referencial operativo. Mary Langer, que vino de Viena, pionera, estudiosa de la psicología de la mujer. Arnaldo Raskowski, vino de Córdoba. La docta, con sus estudios sobre filicidio, pionero en descripciones del psiquismo fetal en 1950, psiquismo fetal en 1950. Racker, que vino de Polonia, aportes inmensos al estudio de la contratransferencia que signa toda la Escuela Argentina de Psicoanálisis. Arminda Verasturi, que desarrolló psicoanálisis de niños y usó la hora de juego de Melanie Crane, usó la hora de juego como método diagnóstico, creando la hora de juego diagnóstica para el psicoanálisis de niños y muchos otros aportes. José Blecher, quien también describió los primeros mecanismos mentales, la posición glitchkocárica, los estudios de Blecher sobre el encuadre son muy conocidos, los retomó Green. Álvarez de Toledo, cuyo estudio sobre las palabras como actos ahora ya es conocido a causa de las traducciones. Y Willy Madé Baranger, que vinieron de Francia. Willy había nacido en Argelia. Ellos dieron al psicoanálisis un aporte trascendente con la teoría del campo dinámico, con la fantasía inconsciente bipersonal, la idea de Baluarte. Hace poco perdimos a Madé y agradecemos todas las condolencias que recibimos de todas partes del mundo. Muchos otros, como García Badaraco, desarrollando la terapia multifamiliar, León Brinberg, con su aporte sobre la contraidentificación proyectiva, Lieberman, la teoría de comunicación. Es tanto el aporte del psicoanálisis argentino que hemos hecho un diccionario con más de 200 términos originales y temas tratados. Muchos. Algunos de ellos fueron tomados por la enciclopedia internacional que hizo la IPA. Así como la Argentina fue generosa y receptora a comienzos del siglo XX, fue expulsora y dura en el último tercio del mismo, con los que quedamos y los que se fueron, y a comienzos del XXI. Y hoy están acá muchos argentinos que viven fuera del país hace muchos años. Quiero darles especial bienvenida a nuestros colegas argentinos y desearles a todos que disfruten de este congreso en esta ciudad tan psi, se dice aquí, ¿no? Una ciudad muy psi, porque tenemos, parece que la prioridad del privilegio de tener la más alta tasa de psicólogos, se dice acá, los psicoanalistas psicólogos en el mundo. Uno por cada 150 en la capital federal. Así que somos muchos. Donde ir al psicólogo es algo completamente natural. Van a ver que se habla en los bares, las conversaciones son que le interpretó su analista, que le contestó, no, a mí interpretó tal otra cosa, no, pero no estoy de acuerdo con la interpretación que te hizo. Es un tema, las interpretaciones de los analistas se discuten en los bares. Y también verán en los kioscos, pero en el diario de más tirada de la Argentina, miren, salió la foto de Virginia. Es el diario de mayor tirada de la Argentina, hace la foto de Virginia Ungar para avisar que la presidenta de la API es argentina. Dice, el mundo entero en su diván. Es mucho, ¿no, Virginia? Bueno, yo sé, porque lo he vivido, el enorme esfuerzo que implica llegar hasta aquí. Hay muchas personas y muchísimo tiempo de trabajo y mucha gente para agradecer. Así que muchas gracias a todos ustedes y muchas gracias a todos los que han hecho esto posible, a los que han venido desde todas partes del mundo. Hay una gran energía acá, hay mucha potencia de trabajo. Me encantó saber que han venido tantos candidatos de todo el mundo. Buenos Aires es atractiva como ciudad y como ciudad psicoanalítica. Por eso entonces a todos, welcome, bienvenue, benvinto, benvenuto. Sean bienvenidos todos a Buenos Aires a este congreso.
Now I am pleased to invite Liliana Fudin, the president of the Argentine Psychoanalytic Society.
Bueno, buenas tardes a todos, a todas. Como representante de la Sociedad Argentina de Psicoanálisis, de la SAP, les doy la bienvenida a este congreso. Un congreso que es fundamentalmente un encuentro de muchos encuentros y de muchos reencuentros. Bienvenidos a compartir experiencias de nuestra intimidad con nuestros analizandos, a intercambiar ideas acerca de nuestra intimidad con nosotros mismos, donde nos pensamos como analistas y como personas, a encontrarnos en intimidad con los colegas, a presentar nuestras ideas más íntimas, nuestras convicciones y los valores que sustentamos, a dejarnos llevar por caminos de reflexión, de argumentación, de dilucidación conceptuales, a luchar por nuestras teorías, a veces fervientemente, como si fueran verdades reveladas, a debatir acerca de la intimidad en la pareja, la intimidad en la familia, los orígenes de la intimidad, biología o cultura, biología y cultura, intimidad y su relación con las sexualidades, a abordar temas actuales como tecnología e intimidad, intimidad y privacidad en la pantalla, el servidor, la nube, a plantear nuestros temores y reservas frente a lo desconocido que está sucediendo, la ciberintimidad. Reflexionar acerca de la intimidad y soledad, el miedo a la intimidad, de la intimidad frustrada, la intimidad fallida, las consecuencias. ¿Está amenazada la intimidad? Compartir experiencias acerca de intimidad de la relación analítica con niños, de la intimidad y sus vicisitudes en la práctica psicoanalítica de grupos e instituciones, a hablar sobre la veracidad e intimidad en las organizaciones psicoanalíticas, la intimidad en las instituciones psicoanalíticas, identificaciones, rivalidades, límites, injerencias institucionales, la intimidad en las reuniones con los analistas y de los analistas, a darnos cuenta una vez más que nuestros problemas en las instituciones no son solo nuestros. Descubrir el mundo del psicoanálisis en la cultura de nuestro lejano oriente, llamado también área del Pacífico. Conjeturar acerca de la relación entre intimidad, nuestro pasado, los descendientes de los traumas históricos, acerca del impacto de la cultura y la política sobre los patrones de intimidad. Todas estas cosas vamos a conversarlas seguramente en todos estos días, pero quiero además darle una bienvenida especial a los miembros de IPSO y a algunos que por primera vez concurren a este tipo de congresos, a nuestros candidatos. Bienvenidos también ustedes, bienvenidos ustedes a compartir juntos preocupaciones, ideas, confesarse sueños y pesadillas, abrirse a conocer nuevos amigos, a reencontrarse con otros, a dejarse impactar por cuestiones que no se les habían ocurrido antes o por otras que encuentran ahora, pero es como si siempre las hubiesen sabido, a reírnos juntos, a encontrarnos. Y además, tráiganos jóvenes sus ideas, confróntenos con las nuestras, no acepten verdades, ayúdennos a entender, ayúdennos a jugar, los necesitamos. A todos también, bienvenidos a festejar, a celebrar, a despedir, a agradecer, a despedir agradecidamente y a participar de la asunción de Virginia, de nuestra querida Virginia, que tanto dio y sigue dando a todas las instituciones argentinas.
Muchas gracias a Liliana Fudin. Y ahora invitaré, I will invite, ahora el presidente de Buenos Aires Psychoanalytic Association, Horacio Barredo.
Bueno, me temo que a esta altura de la ceremonia de apertura no van a escuchar de mí más que repeticiones de lo que ya se ha dicho, pero bueno, algo tengo que decir. Voy a comenzar, si puedo, con los agradecimientos. En primer lugar, a la presidenta del Congreso, doctora Alexandra Billinghurst, a Maureen Murphy, presidenta del Comité de Programas, y a todos los integrantes del comité organizador, mi más sincero reconocimiento por el esfuerzo y la dedicación que han brindado por el logro de este 50º Congreso que hoy se inicia y lleva por título Intimidad. A todos gracias por haber sabido escuchar parte de nuestros reclamos de cambio. Agradecimiento que quiero hacer extensivo también al comité local con quien compartimos parte de la tarea y sabemos de su esfuerzo y dedicación por lograr el mejor resultado posible. Y sobre todo, por hacer participar del mismo a todos los que por diferentes motivos no pueden estar hoy aquí presentes. Al doctor Stefano Bolognini, por estos 4 años al frente de nuestra institución madre IPA, a la cual ha conducido con solvencia, eficacia y, a mi entender, democráticamente. A Virginia Nungar, con quien es hoy el orgullo mayor de nuestra institución Abdeva, le deseo lo mejor en esta nueva y compleja tarea que emprende junto con Sergio Nick al frente de la IPA. Y fundamentalmente a todos ustedes, hoy aquí presentes, por haber venido a este hermoso y complejo país. Nos une nuestra pasión por el psicoanálisis y una firme creencia en el inconsciente que heredamos de Freud. Tenemos la posibilidad en estos 4 días de enriquecernos intercambiando nuestras ideas, si aceptamos, como dijera ayer Stefano, que somos una institución internacional compleja que presenta una gran diversidad entre sus miembros, con pensamientos y realidades socioculturales y económicas muy diferentes. Como sucede cada 2 años, nos reunimos para conocernos, estrechar lazos y expresar nuestro pensamiento ante colegas de muy diversos lugares del continente en un clima de camaradería y cordialidad. Ojalá logremos también, y a pesar de la gran cantidad de asistentes, un clima de intimidad donde poder expresarnos con absoluta libertad, como lo comenzamos a hacer ayer en los lugares que nos tocó concurrir. Si podemos escucharnos, intercambiar ideas, aceptando lo ajeno sin pretender imponer nuestro pensamiento, estoy seguro que será un congreso exitoso. Por último, espero y deseo disfruten de vuestra estadía en Argentina. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Many thanks to Horacio Barredo. And before stopping this opening ceremony, a last mention from Holger Himmelhofen, who forgot an important information.
Yes, I forgot to, thank you very much. I forgot to mention one very, very important thing. As at every IPA IPSO Congress, there will be an IPSO party, but this time it's on the Thursday, tomorrow, not on the Friday, and there are still tickets available. So just to mention this, the IPSO party in the Club Arauz. So this is what I just wanted to mention. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you, Olga. Now we have a small delay in our program, but you can enjoy for 30 minutes the coffee break, and then we will start with the clinical plenary. Thank you very much. Have a good Congress.